Hello, good morning and welcome to Sports Central, brought to you live and exclusive to Spectrum Television. Returning a beautiful Friday morning to look at the latest development emanating from the exciting world of sports. We'll look at the ongoing under-20 athletics competition with Nigerians making big names for themselves, particularly in the shot put event. One lady has been absolutely outstanding from the recently concluded competition in the Commonwealth Games to the Under-20 Championship, and we may just likely see another big name for Nigeria emanating from the shot put category. We'll also look at the track and field event. Nigeria also played a part right there. We'll take a look at the world of tennis, both the ATP and the WTA tour level competitions. We'll also look at the world of football, the ongoing Women's Africa Cup of Nations, the group stage of it has been finally concluded. And now we're looking at what gets to happen, which will be the quarterfinal stage. We'll also look at the continent of Africa, the CAF Champions League and CAF Confederations Cup preliminary draws held yesterday, and Nigerian teams have been paired against their opponents outside the shores of a country. We'll look at all of these alongside the world of transfer as well. Don't forget you can also follow us on the socials, Spectrum TV Live.ng, and you join us every step of the way as regards football conversations and sports this morning. I am Mutube David, and I'm absolutely delighted. Before we look at all of these stories extensively, let's first of all bring you up to speed with big development making rounds in the world of sports. Welcome to the show. The conversation this morning starts from home, where Jessica Orji claimed women's shot put gold, breaking 4 TS jeans. What Team Nigeria's Jessica Orji is actually the world under-20 champion in the women's shot put, and that comes after booking a spot in the final, producing a throw of 17.56 meters, with her opening attempt to surpass the automatic qualifying standard of 16 meters comfortably. Orji's eyes were set for gold as she claimed gold in Eugene in the wee hours of Friday with a best throw of 18.08 meters, just 9 days after winning a Commonwealth silver, becoming Nigeria's first ever world under-20 champion in a field event in the 40-year history of the championships. Ecuadorian Bliss Quinons finished second with 17.9 meters, while the bronze went to Emilie Scheff of Germany with 17.23 meters. Still talking about the championship, Team Nigeria delivered another impressive performance at this particular ongoing World Athletics Under-20 in the United States, setting a new African Under-20 record in the mixed 4x100-meter relay, while securing qualification places in the women's 400-meter and men's triple jump. The Nigerian quartet of Tejiri Godwin, Rosemary Nwachukwu, Perfect Fire, and Miraculous Chukwu clocked 41.91 seconds to finish second in their heat and qualify for the final in record-breaking fashion. After entering the final exchange behind the leading teams, anchor runner Miraculous Chukwu produced a remarkable closing leg, overtaking Germany and closing rapidly on the United States before crossing the finish line. His outstanding 10.05 second anchor split helped Nigeria register a Nigerian under-20 record and the fastest time ever recorded by an African under-20 team in the mixed 400 by 100 relay. In the women's 400-meter, Jacinta Lawrence and Faith Ezechukwu both progressed to the semi-finals after strong performances in their respective heats. Nigeria's encouraging campaign continued in the men's triple jump, where Precious Opinion produced a personal best leap of 16.02 meters during the qualification round. With several athletes advancing across multiple events and a record-breaking relay team heading into the final, Team Nigeria will enter the next stage of the championships with increasing confidence and realistic medal ambitions. Now to the world of tennis, where Cameron Norrie aimed one of the comeback wins of the season on Thursday when he recovered from 5-7-2-5 deficit and saved the match point, the down third seed Alex de Minaur at the National Bank Open. The Briton dug deep to record a 5-7, 7-6, 6-1 victory after 2 hours and 52 minutes in difficult, humid conditions. De Minaur doubled faulted while holding his lone match point at 5-2 in the second set. 7 for the match, again at 5-4, the Aussie suffered a similar fate, double faulting to surrender the game on Norrie's fourth break point. After the 30-year-old Norrie earned a break to stay alive, the number 37 player in the ATP ranking swung freely and began to hold the advantage in bruising baseline exchanges. Entering Thursday, Alex de Minaur was the highest seed remaining at the hard-court tournament. Now that title belongs to Ben Shelton, the fifth seed and defending champion. Well, up next for Cameron Norrie is 18th seed Arthur Fields, who earlier cruised past Mariano Navoni 6-3, 6-2 to maintain his impressive record at Masters 1000 events this year. It will mark their first head-to-head meeting as well. Now straight to WTA scene where Zabalenka Arena faced a far tougher test on Thursday night than her 6-3, 6-4 win over Zhang Zhuai in an hour and 16 minutes, while the number one never appeared in real danger of an upset, where Zhang kept her under pressure throughout the encounter. Zabalenka even stared down a break point in the final game before sweeping it away and taking the last 3 points to close out the winning stretch sets. With the win, Zabalenka improved to 25 wins and 1 loss on hard courts this season. Her lone loss on the surface coming in the Australian Open final. She's the fastest player to reach 25 hard-court wins in a season since Serena Williams in 2016. Despite the defeat, Zhang finished just 1 on forced error. She'll face number 16 seed Ekaterina Alexandrova, a matchup tighter than the seedings suggest. Zabalenka holds a narrow 5-4 edge in their head-to-head, where she has won 3 of the last 4, including their most recent meeting in Berlin in June. And now to the world of football, where Nigeria's representative in the 2026 and 27 CAF Champions League, Rangers International and Rivers United, have discovered their teams standing between them and a place in the lucrative group stage of CAF club competition. The draws for the preliminary rounds were conducted by the Confederation of African Football in Cairo on Thursday, with both Nigerian clubs handed different challenges. Rivers United, who have a stronger CAF ranking from their recent performances in continental competitions, have been seeded for the competition. The Port Club, ranked 24th in Africa with 15 CAF coefficient points, will face Cote d'Ivoire's FC San Pedro in the first preliminary round. Rivers United will be favourites on paper, with FC San Pedro ranked 60th in CAF's latest club coefficient standings. While if Rivers United progress, they will face either Uganda's Vipers SC or Mauritania's FC Nouadhibou in the second preliminary round, with a place in the group stage at stake. Well, as for Rangers International, the road to the group stage looks more difficult. The reigning Nigerian Premier Football League champions were not seeded, and that's because they are lower CAF ranking and have been drawn against Benin Republic champions Sobemap FC. The Enugu-based club must overcome the West African side to set up a second-round meeting with either Niger Republic ASN Nigelec or Algerian Giants Mark Alger FC. The first preliminary round matches will be played over 2 legs, with the first legs scheduled for September 4th to 6th and the return legs from September 11th to 13th. The second preliminary round will take place from October 16 to 18, with the return legs scheduled for October 23 to 25. Well, that's all we have at this time. We'll take a very short breather. When we return, we'll have an excessive conversation on the show. Do stay with us.
Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to another exciting moment. We talk about interesting news in the world of sports. It is Sports Central, and my name is Blyden Uken. This morning in Sports Central, we'll look at key features in it. And most often than not, when we're talking about sporting activities, we'll look at football. We'll also talk about tennis and basketball in that direction. Today, a key center will look at the WAFCON getting to the quarterfinals of the last group game taking place as Ghana, Yusuf, Mali in that direction and getting into the quarterfinals of the WAFCON. So the WAFCON outlook is taking center stage in the quarterfinal business end of it. I would be quite excited to talk about all the nitty-gritty and the details that comes with it. And similarly, the world of transfers, the world of football getting so interesting. And just like Vinicius Junior and Real Madrid agree, new 6-year deal in that regard. Well, and the CAF Champions League also, the preliminary stage of it also up and running, talking about the likes of the Nigerian side, finding that openings in that regard. And we'll also talk about the world of transfers. Beyond transfers, interesting talking points also center around the under-20 championship that's taking place, fencing, FIFA youth competition with the D Tigers in that regard. And in the world of tennis, the Montreal Open. Would be basically what the options are for us this morning. I'm not alone in the house, day two, with Toby Davis still being part of the mix. Funny Tina not readily available today because some official details that comes with it. But Toby Davis, good morning, good to see you this morning.
Well, delighted to return, Blyden. It is a weekend filled with numerous sporting activities, and I think I'm even more quite delighted about the very fact that at this moment we're talking about the quarterfinals of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. It comes with lots of expectations, and as a matter of fact, I'm delighted to see what happens next.
Oh, Toby David, delighted to see what happens next. I think we might just get to start from the WAFCON in that direction. Yesterday, we go to football stories and start from football stories anyway this morning. Yesterday, we saw Mali pull the draw against Ghana, but somehow Ghana qualified. So we're looking at other games that took place. Cameroon, in that regard, against Cape Verde. That particular group are having another 1-0 draw in the fixture. We're talking about Cameroon being the first team to qualify for the WAFCON quarterfinals, but some big talking point, big analysis would come immediately afterwards. Well, we're talking about the group that involves these two teams now. Cape Verde pulling a draw against Cameroon. I think the first draw for Cape Verde at this tournament. And we're talking about Mali playing a 1-0 draw and Ghana finding their way to the quarterfinals.
It also almost an identical, of what happened between the Super Falcons group alongside Zambia and Malawi, and I think I emphatically talked about it yesterday that the battle would be between whoever wins, particularly between Ghana and Mali in that particular game. And I was even more expectant of the Ghanaian national team to get past the Malians because of the pedigree they have at this competition and what they have been able to do as well in recent times. But it was also a game, a very crucial game where both nations were actually fighting for their lives. Mali at the other end were also looking forward to win. Same could also be said for Ghana as well. They were also looking forward to win the game. So somehow you'd always expect back and forth in terms of competition. You expect both sides to actually ask questions, and even after 90 minutes, both sides couldn't separate themselves. But then again, so you talk about what CAF are using as a determinant factor for teams that are progressing to the next stage of a competition, and that's why we have Ghana through to the quarterfinals at the expense of Mali. Congratulations to the Ghanaian side, and I think it would be very disappointing for Mali because you're looking at how far they've also fared almost identical with what Ghana's done as well at the group stage of a competition. I've actually had a few coaches that come out, likes of the Zambian coach coming out to complain about the formats CAF are using to exit teams at the group stage. But it is what it is. It's something that didn't happen. It didn't start today. It's something we've seen over the years. Maybe with all of these complaints, we may just likely have CAF revisit the conversation around permutations as regards which team qualifies to the next stage of a competition. But I think at the moment it will be unevenly poised quarterfinal encounters, particularly for these teams that have progressed to the next phase, and I'm looking forward to even more intense battle, especially for these teams as well.
Well, we started the football conversation this morning. We got to see what follows through to David. You've made a point, just like many people are talking about, and part of that point has been bold upon the very fact that a CAF structure, if you look at CAF structure,
head-to-head tie-break.
The head-to-head tie-break
Yeah.
being that concern. Everyone's struggling about it because naturally it could have been, if you say head-to-head, after head-to-head, you look at goal difference. It could have been a lot. Maybe the likes of Nigeria might not had qualified.
Yeah.
It could have been Zambia qualifying. They scored the most goal against Egypt, and the end of it, 6-1 it was, I think, against Egypt, or 6-0 thereabouts against Egypt, and at the end of it, or probably maybe Malawi would have left the conversation because Nigeria scored 6-2 against Egypt at the end of it. So the proliferation of stuff has come to a point where if the rules favor you, you're happy. When it doesn't come in your favor, you're quite sad. Would you want to change to this rule so we keep it at a basic level, so we're not pressing our calculator so much and doing the mathematics so much in terms of qualification? I was seeing the video by the Malawian side. Remember, if you were following live updates, you might have thought that Zambia had qualified. So the Malawian players were so sad after they played the game, lost 2-1 to Zambia. They were sad. They went to celebrate with their fans. Also talking
Zambia
about
were quite happy.
Yeah, Zambia were quite happy. Malawi were quite sad based on the numbers and the rankings at the end of it. And while they were just bidding farewell to their fans, the new Brooks broke from the federation that, look, come on, don't worry, girls, you've qualified. And they became so happy. And on the other hand, Zambia wondering why they're happy, just for Zambia to realize that they're out of the competition and will be going to the World Cup. So putting this in context, do you think a CAF should, from your standpoint, should make adjustment to this and just change the structure in that regard? I probably want to do head-to-head. After that, it shouldn't be head-to-head and head-to-head ties in that regard. Just go to goal difference afterward.
I think we should actually, go to the basics, and it is actually what is obtainable from other confederations as well, even in Europe. Even in Central and North America, we've seen this happen, which is the first part of call is usually the goal difference, superior goal difference. If you look at the group where Nigeria were alongside Zambia and a few other teams, Zambia scored the most goals at the group stage in that particular group. They considered the fewest as well. So when you look at that, a team who scored the most and considered the fewest, if you're looking at goal difference particularly, Zambia should be there among the conversation about teams qualifying to the quarterfinals. But even with humongous goals scored and fewer goals conceded, they still find themselves, returning back home. It is quite painful. And I think for Nigerians, if they were also caught in the web of such scenario, I understand, of course, they will also clamor for a change as well. We're basically not really talking about it because it doesn't affect the Super Falcons of Nigeria. It went in favor of the Super Falcons.
Whether it affects you now, it might affect you.
It might actually happen in this tournament.
Nigeria 2006.
Absolutely.
Nigeria couldn't qualify for the World Cup because of head-to-head first, despite scoring humongous about 20-something goals, a lot more than I think Angola that qualified for it.
So I think for me, the first port of call by CAF should be changing the rule, making it goal difference, superior goal difference first, and from there, if both or all the teams are still locked on the same number of goals in terms of goals conceded and goals scored, then we go to head-to-head, and I think that would be good. So I think it was even more confusing right here, even prior to the last phase of the games, particularly as it has to do with Nigeria and the likes of Zambia. Many were still asking, why is it that Zambia with more goals are still, of course, exceeding the competition, until we had to, of course, break it down a lot more for people to understand. And I understand how frustrating it could be. So basically, for me, I think I'll still choose the, format that is obtainable, especially in the world of football by other continents. And that would be, superior goal difference first, and thereafter, we'll look at head-to-head. I think that should be the basics for CAF.
Now, thereafter, we'll look at head-to-head. On the other hand, no matter how I want to look at it, David has made a statement, but CAF didn't stand up from the Blues to take this kind of decision. I think it's a build-up from what's really happening from a FIFA point of view. The CAF always learning from FIFA somehow at the end of it.
FIFA have gone past that. CAF are still dwelling.
On the other hand, it doesn't really seem popular at the moment, especially because if you look at FIFA World Cup, it wasn't the case at the World Cup.
Absolutely.
Well, let's move ahead. Still within the context of CAF competition, and we talk about the Nigerian club sides that are doing quite well and some that are not doing so well at the end of it. But I know Rangers will play AS Sombab of Benin Republic, and Rivers United will face FC San Pedro of Cote d'Ivoire in the first preliminary round. We're talking about a preliminary round of 2026-2027 CAF Champions League, following the draw in Cairo. So quite interesting now. The numbers are there for a minute to follow in that regard. Enugu Rangers versus AS Sobab of Benin Republic, and Rangers will host the first leg, and Rivers United also against the opening San Pedro. And they travel for the first leg and match a date. First leg takes place September 4 to 6 and 2027. A second leg occur between September 11 to 13 in that regard. Well, to David, I was listening to Sport Rapper. We really spoke interestingly about it, especially for Rivers United, seemingly looking at the favourites moving forward to the first round. And we can also look at the indices for the second round. Next step, the winner faces either ASN Neglelec, talking about Rangers in that direction, from Niger Republic, or MC Alger. MC Alger could be consequential anyway. And Rivers United, next step, if they win this particular one, would be them facing either Vipers of Uganda or FC Nohebo of Mauritania in that regard. I know what you make of the first preliminary round of the CAF Champions League in that regard.
Well, I think the Nigerian sides actually have easier ties, especially in the first preliminary round of the CAF Champions League. But in as much as we're looking at the very fact that those are relatively easier opponents, one would also not, override the very fact that they come with basic threats. Anything can possibly
Everyone
happen.
wants to qualify.
Absolutely. So I'm looking at, of course, Rivers United. Trying to, as much as possible to, get the job done in the first preliminary round and go through the second. I think the second is even more difficult than the first at the moment. But I think Rivers United, they have to be prepared at top level. As a matter of fact, if they really want to find themselves, at the height and level of football, as it has to do with continental engagement, they've actually, signed a few players during the off season, and I'm expecting more. From this particular side heading to the start of the new season. I think one of the basic concern would be how those new players will be able to acclimatize with Coach Finidi George demands, and of course play quality football when the continental assignment beckons, which is actually something where Rivers United are, of course, know at the moment. I think that highest ranked, Nigerian side as regards CAF coefficient on the continent.
So coefficient ranked 24th
and that's
in Africa.
And that's basically about because they qualified to the group stage the last time they played on the continent of Africa. But I think the only worry now for
in recent times, they've been the best.
Yeah, they've been the best, no doubt about that.
No matter how I want to talk about it, others can qualify through the preliminary stage. Rivers United find a way to do that and go to the main stage of the competition.
I think recently my only problem would be about bulk of these teams playing away from home, and in as much as we try to, make it look like yes, it is home away from home, but you can't, overly overlook the very fact that most times when you're actually playing away from your natural ground, you may just not really have the numbers also turn up to watch your game. Take, for instance, we're having Rivers United play at the Nest of Champions here, would have many football lovers in Akwa Ibom turning up to, watch that game. But it wouldn't be, of course, a similar scenario if they had actually played at the Doki Mesamaka Stadium in Rivers State, where you have many supporters of Rivers United situated in that city. So some way, somehow, it could also affect the momentum of the side, not really having large numbers of crowds cheering the side up for victory. But I think the side can actually do well. Recently, we're also talking about, CAF, coming out to emphatically state that every single team at the preliminary stage of a CAF Champions League, whether you qualify to the group stage or not, you're going home with $100,000. So that should also be a very big motivation for all of these Nigerian teams, in continental assignment to do better. I'm expecting nothing less than victory rather, at the first preliminary stage of a CAF Champions League for both teams.
A preliminary stage of a CAF Champions League for both teams. So David expecting victory for Rivers United and Rangers in that regard. Let's talk about the second tier competition in CAF. Competition will have to do with a Shooting Stars Sports Club of Nigeria, 3SC, are facing Tunisian heavyweight in that regard, CS Faxian, in the first preliminary contest of 2026 CAF Confederations Cup. We'll talk about it every now and then. We get to talk about how difficult it can be, especially when they're facing North African sides. You think a Shooting Stars can go even further to leap and move forward in that direction? We're talking about the first preliminary stage of it, and just like Ole Warriors making the long-awaited return of continental football for the first time in 27 years. First time we're having Shooting Stars go back to a competition in CAF. First time in 27 years. I seem like novice now.
I think it will be even more difficult because we're looking at a more experienced Tunisian Saktien side. They have been here over time. This is not the first season we've heard of them, playing Nigerian teams, particularly at the preliminary stage of CAF, assignment, and usually it doesn't really always end well. I can actually tell you that it doesn't always end well, especially when you're facing, a North African side. But I think for Shooting Stars, they should take courage from the very fact that it's been a long time that actually appeared at this stage of a competition. And the very fact that they're here means that they're also deserving representative, because they were able to, of course, get into the top 3 of the NPFL table last season. And I'm expecting more from the Shooting Stars side. Yeah, inexperience could also count somehow, because it's been a long time they appeared here. But I think they should also, express themselves on the continent. This will further test whether or not Nigerian teams have actually improved, just like we've talked about in recent times, dominating local football, the NPFL, the Presidential Cup as well. But whenever called upon on the continent of Africa, always find themselves wanting. And I believe the likes of Shooting Stars should be ready for this particular crack. I think Al-Kanami Warriors are the only team, in the CAF Confederations Cup competition that have maybe a little bit, of course, easy team. But I think both sides have got to be ready. Otherwise, it might just be another question marks, especially for Nigerian teams as regards their quality whenever they face other African teams on the continent.
Well, the control room is doing exactly what some Nigerian clubs, the way they behave. I don't know why the Super Falcons says on the screen anyway, but it's basically what it is, baby. They want us to talk about the Super Falcons in the course of it. But interestingly, a talking point in that regard, the next level would be the aggressive winner of the two-legged encounter, advancing to the second preliminary round in that direction. And the conversation is though facing either Cote d'Ivoire's AF Amaju Diallo or Sierra Leone's East End Lions. The Lions in this one, not so popular, but come on. When a team is named Lion, it can be Lion in dispensation and performance. Anyway, a second leg away game. We'll talk about the schedule between September 11 and 18, 2026, and the return leg would be a fixture take place in Fax, Tunisia. So simply what we're talking about, performance and catching interest, and a big talking point will center around Nigeria's side's performance in CAF competition. Rivers United being the biggest of them at the moment because they've done well in time past. Always critical, the preliminary stage, especially when smaller teams, just like we talked about Shooting Stars, the sports club, have been 27 years have not featured at this competition, and now they're facing a top side from Tunisia. Let's move ahead then and talk about the talking point in that regard. Well, to there is still within football. Interesting feature would be about CAF agreeing to support Gianni Infantino, FIFA president, amid his FIFA governance crisis. Just yesterday we talked about the meeting and the crisis where Infantino had to go to Morocco, gathered everyone, talked about it. He said, come on, we have to understand what's really going on. Yeah. Probably, I'm trying to picture the event, what Infantino was saying, and maybe making a wonderful speech and telling everyone, I was looking at him, I wasn't necessarily thinking about mine. It was in your best interest. I was looking at the interests of football and how this can lead to a further improvement in the federations having more money. But we hear CAF has come out to support them. CAF were the only federation at the time when everyone came out to say what Infantino is doing isn't right. Yeah. CAF kept mute. CAF president, close friend of Infantino in that direction. Africans wanted to say, leave all of this talk here. We need the money.
Well, I always knew that, CAF are actually in favor of Infantino. The main reason that they didn't say anything was a very big picture about where CAF are. And I think it is really obvious, African football needs money. I mean, from infrastructural developments, which we're still lacking behind, to, having, some of the best speeches, talk about having some of the best, exporters of footballers as well to, global stage has also been quite a very big, worrisome problem, even in recent times as well. So I always knew that CAF, somewhere, somehow, will actually support FIFA president, because if that particular bid were to go through, I mean, that will be more money to the continent of Africa, and also means more money for, member nations as well, which to a large extent but also positively impact their football and across the nation. So I think it's, quite good, not entirely bad for me, because you look at the very fact that since the emergence of Gianni Infantino, Africa as a continent have also benefited from the increasing number of, nations participating at the World Cup to increasing, funds as well, especially funds, credited to member nations of FIFA. The numbers have also increased as well as it has to do with Africa. So all of these particular indices actually shows that some Africa as a continent will support Gianni Infantino. And immediately after that meeting, we saw the man attending the Women's Africa Cup of Nations game. So you would also know that that's a big signal that CAF are actually for Infantino.
And it had to bring the meeting to Africa.
Absolutely.
So, come on, lots of people probably just coming. If Europeans are so angry,
absolutely,
the rest of them are
angry.
And they turn around, Africa Africans will support him.
Yeah.
So the African guys can tell the rest, calm
Don't
down.
worry.
Don't worry. We shouldn't behave in that way. Smart move by Infantino.
A good one,
but
I'd
at
say.
the end of it, the Europeans who were complaining, all of them sort of come back to the foot, seem to agree with Infantino staying put.
Yeah.
Despite all the emotions that flared up, all the talking point that came at the end of it. Maybe too much shouts, but at the end of it, it does you want the money.
Yeah, I think
because we should make it as if Africa wants the money a lot.
Yeah.
Federations in Europe also want the money. Maybe not the big wigs.
I think basically for me, I think all the federations, all the member nations really want this money. It was just as a matter of, the affiliations of a company who came to invest in FIFA and what happened at the World Cup. So I think that's just what it is at the moment.
And when a company is affiliated with Donald Trump, it seems excessive control.
It raises eyebrows, particularly. So understand that maybe if it happens again in the nearest future with another brand, we could actually see all the member nations agreeing to the idea.
Well, we can see the member nations agreeing to the idea. And quickly, let's go still in the world of football to the world of transfers. A drama continuing in the world of transfer would be that Real Madrid and Vinicius Jr. have officially agreed to a new 6-year contract extension and looking at the Brazilian superstar to the club and locking him to the club until June 30th, 2032. From what we've heard that there's been an improvement from the 22 million euros per year mark, improvement in that regard, and his pivotal stature at the club has been cemented. Jose Mourinho, the coach of the side, clearly stated he needed Vinicius Jr. to be a part of that team. And 6 years, that's something. So we see Vinicius Jr. back at the Clásicos, back at the Santiago Bernabéu. New look Vinicius Jr., let's say.
I almost knew that Vinicius Jr. would stay put at Real Madrid, in as much as we also talked about the attention from Arsenal. But I also look at it as attraction to get a very big package from Real Madrid. Previously, his previous contract was pegged at £17 million per year. So it has been quite an increasing figure. We're talking about a little close to about £24 million a year now. So that's a massive improvement for Vinicius Jr. I must say, with other commercial incentives also coming in between. I think the man, of course, has no other options than to stay at Real Madrid, because when I look at the most realistic option for him, we could talk about us and the rest of them, but I think Real Madrid still fits the profile of Vinicius Jr., a man who's still at the peak of his career and really wants to win, bulk of the titles as well with Real Madrid. So now under the tutelage of Jose Mourinho, a man that says he wants him, and definitely, why actually choose other options? You just have to find a middle ground and ensure that you agree to a contract and stay for the long term. So good idea that the man is staying put and he really wants to win trophies at Real Madrid.
Good idea. Vinicius Jr. is staying put and wants to win trophies for Real Madrid. We're talking about a standing. Vinicius Jr. joined Real Madrid in 2018 and spanning within this period to 2026 statistical milestone, 375 games he's played across all competition in that regard. And we're talking about 128 goals for Vinicius Jr., 14 titles, including 2 Champions League, 3 La Liga titles. He joined Real Madrid at the age of 18 from Flamengo in 2018. We're talking about FIFA Best Men's Player of the Year 2024 and scored in both the 2022-2024 Champions League final. An absolute phenomenal. Many would say he's not really gotten to that pinnacle yet, probably because of a Ballon d'Or award. But Vinicius Jr. is staying a massive big one for Real Madrid and the player. Similarly, a player that has been touted by Real Madrid in recent times, Rodri. Well, talking about Rodri joining Real Madrid, and Rodri has said if it's not Real Madrid, it's not going anywhere. But for what we're hearing, Rodri has given a nod to FC Barcelona, green light to FC Barcelona. A shock one, many would say, for the 30-year-old Spaniard captain and the 2026 World Cup Golden Ball winner, a Ballon d'Or winner by his right. Real Madrid, Barcelona, which one is more fitting for Rodri?
Well, I think for Rodri now, it would be about who wants him more. That's basically what I'm looking at the moment, because reports emanating from England is that he wants to return back to Spain, because of his family, close ties to his family and all of that. So whoever comes, because I think
everyone wants to return to Spain now that Pep Guardiola isn't available. When Pep was around, they weren't returning to Spain,
And they were also looking at, Enzo Maresca. I still do not feel that, Rodri has that much faith in, Enzo Maresca's reign, being quite dominating in English football anyway, because I'm looking at the reason why he should believe in, Manchester City at the moment. I mean, no other options. You're not fighting the shell with anybody in the middle of the park, especially as it has to do with your play. So the basic reason would be about his family, reuniting with his family. So Real Madrid haven't tabled any bid at the moment. So he's telling Barca, I mean, if you've got the cash, table it. I'll definitely complete for you.
Since you don't want to table a bit anyway, it's basically what it is. CTI Enzo Fernandez as Rodri replacement. We're going to see how it pans out. Trafford joined Leeds United from Manchester City in potential £45 million deal. Real Madrid signed Diomande in deal worth up to £120 million. Arsenal interested in Spurs captain Romero and Van de Ven are close to agreeing new Spurs contract. Liverpool have no intention of pursuing Jet Spence this summer. Juventus in that regard. We'll go on a quick break. When we're back, the conversation continues. The last phase of it would be non-football stories. We'll touch a bit of non-football stories because we call it done this morning. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's still Sports Central. And my name is Vladimir Kumutweda. It's still me for company going nowhere. And now we'll be going to a non-football conversation, which means other championship, tennis, and the rest of it. The last phase, a last lap of this conversation about, well, we'll just move ahead. I wanted to talk about the Diomande situation at Real Madrid, £120 million. That's a humongous amount of money. But let's do justice a bit to non-football. At the Under 20 Championship, Jessica Orji claims women's shot put gold and breaks 48 gins as Nigeria advances on multiple fronts after a record-breaking relay run in that direction. Well, Nigeria's Junior D Tigers reduced to 7 players after FIBA eligibility setback. Well, David, I need you to do a quick justice to this because we're out of time. And quickly now, first, Jessica Orji claiming women's shot put gold. Quite amazing.
I think that should be a player to watch on the continent of Africa, and as it has to do with Nigeria as well. The fastest rising, shot put, thrower for Nigeria in the women's category. At the recently concluded Commonwealth Games, she won a silver medal. And now we're talking about a gold medal at this particular championship. Maybe it could be, she could be the next Chukwuebuka Nekochi in the women's category of shot put event. Congratulations to her. But I'm definitely certain that this is actually a lady for the future for Team Nigeria. Away from that now to, of course, the other conversation you talked about, the D Tigers. I think it's absolutely embarrassing to understand the very fact that five of the players that were taken to this particular championship to represent Nigeria at the under 18 junior championship have been sent home because of eligibility status. That's why they lost their first game of this particular competition, and now they have just 7 players available to play for Nigeria's men under 18 team. It remains to be seen whether or not they would have to come back home, because at the moment it still remains quite a question mark as regards whether or not Nigerian basketball federation do not do their due diligence before this player travel to represent the country. But it's still what it is at the moment. This is not the first time it's happening. It's happening in football, and now it's happening in basketball. And I think it's a clarion call that we ought to improve in terms of screening players, especially at the age group competition.
Why should we do this? There's MRI scan. Let's say you don't understand the date of birth of a player. Sometimes when looking at, for example, let's take a cue that this is the picture of the player. Yeah. The man in the center, how can that man be 18? So those are the conversation. Montage and the rest of it. Look, you just see me now. They tell I'm under 20. How does that work? It makes no sense. Those are the controversies that is happening in this country. And I think it's not just about the players going back. The people who are in charge of that organization, in charge of the FA, should be held accountable. Yeah. Come on, this is absolute level or high level of fraud. Age fraud, age cheating, it's really high level of fraud. You're not helping the country develop that sport because youngsters are there. You're not giving opportunity to youngsters. Absolutely. And you're taking old men to tournaments of youngsters. It makes no sense. And really put the country in a terrible state of not just dilemma, a terrible state of embarrassment. And now everyone has to say, why always Nigeria? What is the meaning of this?
A big question.
But I'm pissed off.
I know.
It makes no sense, I must say. It makes no sense. Someone would say Mr. Enoch and say Mr. Enoch is under 20. Come on. You need to see Mr. Enoch. How can you say that? It's terrible. Well, in the world of tennis, With going to the Montreal Open, Norrie saves a match point as Alex Zimino double fault proves costly in Montreal, although Jorda overcomes Musetti again, and we're talking about advancing to round 4 in Montreal. And Alexander Zverev also qualifies for NATO ATP final, joining Sena as Iga Swiatek enjoys a 66-minute victory over Golubic to make Toronto last 16. Whichever David, last lap as we close, we're out of time. Just 30 seconds, Alexander Zverev, and now qualifying for the ATP final.
Well, I think it's as a result of, players not really at their best, trying to usurp Alexander Zverev, who's actually in the top 3 of the ATP rankings. Yannick Sinner, I already know. The man, Carlos Alcaraz, is out injured, so he's actually having a very fun time. Whether or not he plays in bulk of the competitions, he's still retained his status. So, same could also be said for Alexander Zverev. Deserving, I must say, for the 2 players.
All right, deserving for the 2 players, but if there's a player among us that's really deserving for me, it's Timothy David's doing a yeoman's job so far. Thank you, Timothy David, being a part of the show. You have to draw the curtains here. And for me, I do not know how to rate myself. Maybe Timothy will have to do that and the rest would do it. But basically what it is, we have to balance. I want to say a big thank you to you watching at home. And thank you for joining our conversation. And what a week it's been when it has to do with sporting activities around the world. And I want to say have fun this weekend. And from us, Spectrum TV and Sports Central, we say bye-bye. Have a lovely weekend.